Hey guys, welcome back to another transit talk. This is a very exciting one, not just because it involves very, very major Sagittarius energy, which for most people is pretty enjoyable energy. It gets us excited about the future and expanding, changing direction, learning new things, and just kind of feels like life becomes this sort of circus, something that provides a lot more entertainment and curiosity, as there are, oddities in a circus that you might want to uncover or look behind the curtain. We kind of have this childlike wonder whenever we get a fire sign, that we, want to engage with the world in a new way that kind of brings out this creative sense of interaction, that like really challenges us to, just expand our consciousness and, our emotional intellect and awareness. And overall, the fire signs work with our sense of independence and, how we like to separate ourselves from others, to stand out, to stand apart. And Sagittarius is the unique sign in the fire trine, if you will, that is more about the group. And so you may find that you're really focused on finding your people or your group, whether it's a community organization that you want to be a part of, a charity event around the holidays, which there tends to be a few that crop up this time every year. Or even if you consider your family your group, you do everything with them because, family time also takes, a big emphasis this time of the year as well, which, speaking of 2020, has been, really challenging to, I'm sure, maintain some sort of normalcy in any part of your life, but especially around your family. Just some things to be expected, but this eclipse is very exciting because Sagittarius is what we need to make advances. Jupiter brings with it this sense of accomplishment, and with that, there comes an internal confidence that we can achieve what we set out to do. And when we have really big things to accomplish, like restructuring the world and, fighting COVID and everything, we need this big energy to aid us in finding answers, and to, continually challenge us to go seek out new answers. So we, in a sense, are going to become our own teachers. Whether you are going back to school, you're thinking of enrolling in a new program or study, or even at work, if you are taking on a new program or a new job opportunity, you will notice that there is room in your life to expand now, to learn, to explore. And this eclipse really shows it as undeniable as possible that on a global scale, we have so much to do, to really get us to a place to where, we feel confident. We are connecting to other countries again because of COVID. I feel like, the borders have really been drawn even stronger, not just because of travel bans and restrictions, but just because it seems like it's on every country's own agenda to look out for itself right now, and not necessarily its place in the globe. And so while each, country's government or even each local government is trying to tackle this, far-reaching issue, we've become a little dissociated with our global awareness and participation, right? And so Sagittarius energy really encourages us to seek out those people that are from different parts of the world again, to reconnect or to connect new. So this is a time period going into Christmas, where you will start to meet new people, whether it's just chance encounters, during your holiday shopping, or, new people coming into your work. Like I said, if you're starting any new study programs, classmates, teachers, that's oftentimes the environment that we see when we look at the Sagittarius Gemini axis, which is going to be a big focal point for this video. And I do kind of want to just list off the things that, we're going to discuss. This is a pretty heavy, in-depth transit talk, so there really is no time for any tarot crossover in this video. So we're really focusing on, the deeper meaning of these eclipses, since they'll be happening for the next year in the signs of Sagittarius and Gemini, as well as the nodes that reflect that as well, the North Node and South Node. And then this is going to be happening at a significant degree, 23 degrees, and we'll be talking about that a little bit, and what part Pluto has to play in this eclipse. So we also have, just Jupiter to talk about. I usually don't list out everything I want to talk about, but there's a lot to tackle here. And just the deeper meaning of this coming great conjunction. If you guys have heard talk about that on December 21st, which will be exactly a week after the eclipse, we are having the final push, if you will, from the 3 planets that have been involved in this COVID and restructuring society and work from home and kind of, the lifestyle of 2020 and how it's shaping us for the future. The 2 planets of Jupiter and Saturn are going to be conjunct December 21st for the last time for a while, I believe. And just because it's happened in this sequence of events this year that have involved Pluto, this will be the first time they are straying away from Pluto and moving into the sign of Aquarius, which is really exciting stuff. If we're talking about excitement and expansion, Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius is really what we want to see to get the groundwork done on, future innovations, whether it's, using technology as a means to aid us in curing the coronavirus. Aquarius brings out new ideas. It's science heavy. So a lot of inventors have huge Aquarius placements in their charts, or even Sagittarius too. And it's also the sign of kind of the bohemian spiritualists, if you will. So astrologers, tarot readers, people, that look to the stars really come out of the woodworks whenever we see an Aquarius transit, because, it's like the people that are connected to the collective consciousness, if you will. There's a pervading sense of humanity in these people that is going to allow us to understand each other's points of view, and to work with each other as opposed to against. Capricorn and all these huge planets in it have, again, put up boundaries. They have shielded us, in an effort to protect us from the coronavirus. It has been a necessary evil to kind of turn off certain parts of the world or people that you can't interact with in the same way. And Aquarius is going to kind of restructure all of that for us. It's going to allow us a sense of movement and freedom and independence that we haven't really had this year. And so that is a very welcoming energy, as that is a really key factor in indication that, we will be overcoming this pandemic very soon into 2021. And I know there's already talk of vaccines, and I think there was a lady that had already been given the first vaccine in the UK, a much older patient that wanted to kind of be the test subject, if you will. And so there's talks of how they're distributing it here in my state in California, and so there's already like a lot of traction and movement on what is coming out in those regards, and that has a lot to do with Mercury. So we'll be talking about that too. There's one thing I didn't touch up on in the Mercury and Sagittarius video that it really wants to be talked about, as Mercury often does. And yeah, so, this, like I said, the people that will be emerging right now are the ones that are going to be super knowledgeable about innovation, space travel, humanitarian needs and organizations, minorities. Aquarius energy is, the not the underdog, but it's the outcast. It's kind of the person that doesn't fit in with the rest of the group. And so that means that with this pronounced energy moving into Aquarius, all of these people that have felt left out, or that are generally feel very, very different from the rest of the world or their local community, are going to be tapping into this sense of confidence and sense of need, because basically we're going to start utilizing them and their knowledge that maybe hasn't really been utilized in ways before. As we can already see, there's a real growing need for, astrologers out there, esoteric healers, all those kinds of people are really coming into display in very big ways. And I think this is only the first of it. As we really transition into the age of Aquarius, we're going to see more of these Aquarius type people emerge, and it's going to be really interesting, because in a time of unique transition, that's when they step in to show us the way. And so, if you're one of those people that has really felt neglected or always different, where you can never necessarily fit in with your environment, you probably have high Aquarius placements, and this is very likely going to be a time where you shine, where people come to look to you for sage wisdom and advice, and experience, because we're often drawn to things that aren't necessarily mainstream studies or topics, because we see, that there is still valid information and insights in those areas, but they're just not as heavily researched or focused on. And so there comes a time where, everyone eventually gets to be the focus and to be useful to society in ways. And, through these transits, it's Aquarius's time to do that. And so this Capricorn energy of this year has really been the last push, not even push, but it's almost like how hard we hold on to something before we're ready to accept the inevitable change that needs to happen. That is Capricorn. Capricorn is the denier of innovation, and so we have to fight that last urge to keep things traditional in the same way, and to keep the same rules in place that have been around for ages and ages. We have to finally focus on that so that we can let it go and release it, because it doesn't just release on its own. We don't just put it out of our mind and it goes away. And it takes us consciously understanding how bad it's and how much damage and how much it's holding us back, these things that have been in place, and even in our own personal lives for so long, whether it's a toxic relationship, whether it has just been a really bad investment financially, Those two things can go hand in hand. Whether it's been some sort of contractual obligation that you haven't been able to get away from, or you're reevaluating this year for the first time. Whether you've worked for the same company for decades and you have left them, whether it's because of the business having to shut down because of COVID, or you just realize that it just wasn't working for you anymore. And so all these things take us so long to kind of overcome, and to say like, no, I'm not being tied to this anymore. It's not working for me and where I'm going in the future. I'm trying to evolve here, and I just feel like this part of me consistently holds me back and seeks to control me or to restrict me. Those are the Capricorn parts of our lives that we have all come into face to face with this year. And the reason why they're coming up for us is because we have to choose whether to let them go and to start anew somewhere else, or to strengthen them, to make sure that they are going to stay in place years and years down the road. So we could be rewriting the boundaries or the parameters of the contracts that we're in. We could be spearheading some sort of new program or a role even in the company that you've been with for years and years and years. You could be renewing your vows with your partner that you've had for years and years and years. Like, all these things they're either re-solidifying what you've already gotten in your life for so long, so you can hold on to it even better going in the future, so that it even has a healthier and stronger foundation. Thank you, Pluto, for doing that. Or what else Pluto can do is you've pushed it aside, and you're like, this is no longer me. I am evolving, and this is just not a part of that evolution anymore, and so it goes either way. But it's nice that these things that often don't get our attention because they're so long term, they're so big picture, it's not something that's readily on our minds. That when we focus on that stuff that has the most impact on us, we know that we're only preparing for something bigger, right? That's the real reason for all this. And so Aquarius initially really wants you to start out with less responsibility, because if you have less things pulling you or confining you, if you will, you have less promise to innovate and to connect. There's less room in your life. There's less energy that you have to give or to even receive in that matter. And so Aquarius is giving you space. It's giving you conscious space in your life so you can begin new things. And so that is why most of us have had to do away with one or two big things this year. For better or for worse, but they've had to go. So, wrapping up this year as we normally do going into the new year, like, this will be really one to look back on, to really write an oral history of, whether it's there have been life-altering events, that have happened and that have really changed who you are innately this year. Recapping all that stuff, and it's nice to do it with some aid from Sagittarius as we finish out the year. Every year we do, with Sagittarius energy moving into Capricorn, because it promotes this sense of thankfulness and this possibility before we move into the very serious and goal-oriented sign of Capricorn. So yeah, so lots to talk about. So what I really do want to say first off is, December 14th is when this solar eclipse will be happening. Now, the solar eclipse is different from the lunar eclipse. The solar eclipse is when the moon moves in front of the sun and we get that darkness for usually it's only a minute or a few minutes at a time. And usually you have to be in certain parts of the world to actually see that full effect. So, and I don't think there's many places in America this year that are really going to get that totality effect where it actually does go dark for a few minutes while that is visually happening in the sky. But eclipses, whether you're seeing them that way or not, have a huge impact on us. And even whether you have big Sagittarius placements or not, they're going to have a huge impact. And so, this eclipse is happening at 23 degrees Sagittarius. What is so significant about this number, and it's not so much for me personally. I mean, this is like my number. It's something I see all the time, and it's even my birthday number. But the significance of 23, I'm going to give you guys a little dose of numerology here, because they often do go hand in hand. We see a lot reflected in the other, but you take the number 2 and 3. 2 in numerology is a spiritual number. It's a water element, if you will. And so that is kind of our emotional intelligence and awareness, our need to have some sort of structure, which it often involves our home life, which has been a real big focal point this year as we have all been working from home, staying at home. We've all been in our houses way more than we usually are. And so we can already see the significance of the number 2 in that regard. I highly associate it to Cancer, but also to Taurus too, because it's our physical surroundings, and Cancer is like the emotional space and meaning that your physical surroundings give you, that sense of protection. That's what we've been working on as we've all been having to move throughout the world, with masks on, with good hygiene practices, with this kind of shield, if you will, to protect us. And then we take the number 3, so 23. So the number 3 is on the mind plane in numerology. It's at the top, and it has an air sign orientation. It's looking for new. It's looking, how do you get around town with these new restrictions? Well, maybe you have found a different route that puts you in less contact with other people and therefore less chance of contracting COVID. Maybe you have adopted new health habits into your life, as this number is highly associated to Gemini and its ruler Mercury, which is the planet of health. That's thanks more in part to Virgo, secondary ruler, but Gemini also has a placement, a big emphasis on health in its personality. And so we can see, obviously, this has been an enormously important year for health and mindfulness. But it's not just health as in your own health, it is everyone else's too. So you're not just doing things to protect yourself. You may be doing that first and foremost to protect yourself, as you should. Look out for yourself first, but you are also having to take on these practices to protect others around you, whether they are old and very susceptible or immunocompromised, or it's just a random stranger on the street that you don't know. We have to work together, and having an air sign orientation allows us to see the need to cooperate, and it makes us more understanding and mindful of other people. And so having those 2 numbers together provides us a sense of security and protection, but it also provides us a sense of consciousness, and so we're not just looking out for ourselves, but we're getting a glimpse of how our actions affect others with that number 3. Now, the cool thing about this number is, in numerology, what you do is if you have more than one number, you typically add them together and you simplify it to the lowest integer. And so when we add 2 and 3, we get 5. And 5 is the center. If you've ever seen a tic-tac-toe board or a grid, you know how you have 3 rows and 3 columns, and they're divided, and 5 is the number that would be taking up the center row and center column box. So a 5 would be exactly, you know, touched by anything going diagonal or straight through the middle, you know. And so the number 5 is this huge, it's kind of the most significant number in numerology. It relates to the center of yourself, you know, your own self-importance and identity. And so with that number having a focus here, we can see that this eclipse happening at this exact degrees, 23 degrees, the moon and the sun are going to be at this exact degrees, as well as Pluto is also going to be at the exact same degrees, which is a very transformative sign, you know, and it pushes us past our comfort zone to evolve, which means that you could also be letting go of something else again while you take a new direction in this eclipse. Sagittarius is pushing you to move forward. You have to let some things go as well. You know, it's this, it works in this duality. And, you know, with the number 5, we're really doing the things that are most important to us during this time, because they are heart-centered. They are our physical center as well as our energy center. You know, this would be, you know, like those things that you've always wanted to do for yourself. You could be pushed to go out and do them right now. Because Sagittarius and Scorpio energy wants you to take risks, wants you to evolve, wants you to grow. And you don't do that by continuing the same routines and structures that you've had established for so long. So this is the first step, or leap even, how dramatic it may be for you, I don't know, but I could say personally for myself, it's definitely a leap. That we're taking as we move into this new energy going into 2021, because the Aquarius energy that is coming right after it is only going to support us in taking more leaps and bounds going forward. So we have a lot of opportunity to grow here, and that will be a continual theme that we see in the year to come, which is just going to be so black and white from 2020. I mean, the the difference is going to be just so like unignorable, how confining, you know, and restricting 2020 can be, and how liberating and how conscious 2021 can be, you know. And so there is going to be this huge shift, and it can take some time to sort out, but certainly come, I feel like, spring, we'll really feel that full effect. Like we can just do what we want without, you know, having to think about like the rules, the standards. We'll likely see a lot still being rewritten in this time frame. As Saturn, you know, the ruler of government, politics, laws, moving into the sign of Aquarius, is going to seek for more innovation. And that means more changes in the laws and the way that politics operates, which is very much in need of a change. If 2020 has shown us anything, it's how, you know, these old practices and ways are really just not working anymore. I mean, how long it took, you know, the state bodies of America to come to their own practices around COVID, and how they look so drastically different from one state or county to the next. You know, Aquarius is going to be the equalizer. It's going to seek to hold us all to the same standards. So I could see this changing government and how it operates, and maybe taking away the power from the individual states and us just becoming one um, more democratic or federal entity, so we can all be on the same page. That's the focus of Aquarius. It doesn't like people to have, um, you know, other opportunities, but it doesn't want anyone to have the possibility to take advantage of the system. And the more divided that we are, the more people will find opportunities to do that. But the more united and the more conscious that we're all tapped into the same ideals and awareness and on the same track together, the less opportunities there will be for people to take advantage. And so that's really encouraging in itself, because that has been something that we have really seen in this country time and time again, and I'm sure countries worldwide, are people abusing power. And Aquarius is going to show us that that is an old way of living and of operating, that is not going to work if we really want to save this planet, if we really want to have the future that we all want. And so very exciting stuff. I mean, this is really heavy stuff, and I feel like this is a really unique time to be alive and to see all this stuff in action. And it seems like maybe to a lot of people, this pandemic doesn't have a deeper meaning or purpose. But I think if you've seen how it's altered your life so far in just the span of 1 year, shows you that there are bigger things coming. There is sense to it. It's just it's not nonsensical that these things are altering your life, forever, like right now. There is purpose and sense to it, and it just takes some opening your awareness and your mind to see the connections, And that's not all done through astrology. I mean, there's different forms of psychology, or just energy that you pick up from people that allows you to understand that there are bigger things happening outside of your own personal universe, and that it's actually inspiring to see other people's perspectives for a change. That's going to be something that'll be really interesting to see for people that have a hard time understanding someone else's point of view, or stepping outside of their own needs and wants. Those are the people that are going to have the hardest time during this transition, because that has been probably a comfort zone for them for so long, and putting themselves first. But Aquarius doesn't want us to do that. It wants us to band together. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to be living in groups of like 15 and 30 people in like some kind of commune space, which sometimes that's what the energy can present itself, like a band of hippies together starting their own belief system. But it means in a broader sense that you stay connected to people from different walks of life, from different parts of the world, that you know what I mean? That keeps you global, and it keeps you conscious of what is not just going on in your neck of the woods, but on a bigger scale, because Sagittarius and Aquarius wants you to expand your views. It does not want you to be narrow in any sense of the word. Straight and narrow is just something from the past, and we really don't have room for it anymore. And so that's something that a lot of people are grappling with, because I think they're already feeling it on a subconscious level, like the real big change that's upon us. And some people are definitely going to have a harder time than others with it. But we all have the room to achieve and to grow together. Now, Pluto also at 23 degrees, whenever there's another planet or body at the exact same degrees as a full moon or an eclipse in this case, it also has a part to play. There is a significance of numbers in astrology, and so numerology is helpful to have some awareness of, to even kind of divulge their deeper meanings there, and I hope you guys enjoyed that little bit of information. So Pluto's at 23 degrees, and right, like Pluto doesn't want to be left out of this. Pluto's like, no, I'm the reason why 2020 happened. I came, you guys thought I didn't pack a punch anymore. You tried to dismiss me years ago, like I wasn't a part of the solar system. Well, guess what? You know, bitch, I'm back. So Pluto really amplified the work that Jupiter and Saturn were doing. You know, Jupiter and Saturn move a lot faster. They don't pack as much of a change as an outer lying planet, the most outer lying planet, Pluto, does. So if you look at it this way, the closer you are to the sun, the planets that are closest to the sun are called your personal planets. So you got Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, which Earth doesn't have, you know, its own astrology, obviously, because we are on it. It's the physical world. But the farther out you go, the deeper impact those planetary themes and transits are going to have. So if we're involving Jupiter and Saturn are kind of in the middle. So they're not the most personal, but they're not the most impactful either. But if we scale out to after Jupiter and Saturn, we go Uranus, Neptune, and then finally Pluto, this really tiny planet that takes years and years and years, like decades, hundreds of years to change signs, packs the most punch when it comes into contact with another planet or body. And so that's why this once in a lifetime event has kind of unfolded, because Pluto has gotten in the mix of it. You know, if this was just a year where we had Jupiter and Saturn doing this dance together, yeah, it would be a big year for politics, for learning, for change, in rules. You know, it's like the new and the old, Jupiter and Saturn. And it's weird because they often do work together. And I often find that a lot of Sagittarius people have big Capricorn people involved in their lives, and vice versa. So it does show they have this unique relationship, because you can't do one necessarily without the other. But when Pluto comes in, it shows you that there is this great need to alter the course, to transform the energy. And so when Pluto comes into contact with a planet or an asteroid or something, it wants to evolve the energy to make it stronger and to shed whatever parts of it are not working on the physical plane anymore. And so without Pluto, we wouldn't have any of this. Now, without Pluto, we probably wouldn't have COVID, but it was a necessary evil in some ways to get us to focus on ourselves, what is most important, and to rid the world of, you know, practices that we just have no room for anymore going into the future. And unfortunately, there have been a lot of casualties too, because Pluto is, you know, the planet of death. Not everybody is ready for a transformation. And so those people that are spiritually done, or were already in the process of going to sleep, if you will, Pluto kind of gave them the last dose of whatever it was that their body rejected, you know? And so it's like this, it's this very scary sense of like natural selection, or adaptation is more the correct way to look at Pluto. It's like you either adapt or you die. And so Pluto still wants us to be thankful for the work that it's done in this year, which is very scary to wrap our heads around. Like, so many people have died around the world. So many people have been affected by this negatively. And I'm sure you're one of those people, because we all have, you know, we've all played a part in this. And so, you know, Pluto is like, well, somebody had to do it. Somebody had to do the dirty work. Somebody had to get their hands dirty, because you guys need to transform. And so Pluto isn't afraid of getting in there and making a mess and killing things, basically. You know, it's like, no, if I don't do this, nobody will, and we're not going to get anywhere. That's what Pluto is saying. And so the Sagittarius Pluto combination of this eclipse is just showing us to be thankful for what we have had and to be thankful for its death. You know, that chapter of ourselves, whether it was a person you knew, a career prospect, a relationship, you know, an investment, whatever it is that you've had to shed, intentionally or not, this year, Sagittarius allows us one more chance to appreciate its life, you know? And so that's really nice to see in a year that has just been so harrowing, you know, it's just been so scary and so destructive seemingly. But great things nevertheless to come. So, you know, Aquarius energy, going back to Jupiter and Saturn, their great conjunction December 21st. We're already going to feel this shift that the things that we are starting right now have staying power. Because these two planets, when they're involved with each other, you have growth, you have studies, education, expansion, travel. So Jupiter is a planet of great movement. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's physical, but oftentimes when you see Jupiter involved, you go and you travel, you study abroad, you go on a vacation, you know, you do physically move. And so with our movement, whether it's physical or not, Saturn coming in and showing us the greatest of our ambitions, our biggest goals that we want to achieve in the long term, those two planets combined in this great conjunction are showing us that what you are starting right now is stuff that will be here for years and years. So if you're making a really big life change, in the month of December or even January, you know, this has the potential to have a very, very solid foundation for your future because of those two planets combining. And they're going to allow you to still expand. So it's not just, you know, you're starting something new and it maybe offers you a little bit of room to grow. No, what you're doing now is going to allow you to continually grow and evolve over time. So we're talking years and years down the road, you know, and so if that's taking a job that allows you to travel or to connect with people from different parts of the globe, that's a possible combination. If you are relocating, if you're moving to a place where you think you're going to find more work, this shows that there is a great opportunity to do that right now. And I myself am feeling that pull. And yeah, so it's really exciting now that I think we're really getting past the scary, harrowing parts where Pluto was involved. You know, and now it's about more so the middle. You know, we're still not in the personal planets, but we're no longer in the outer lying ones either. We're in kind of the middle. And so now we'll get a better view of what is to come and what's in our past. You know, now we can kind of see it both ways, you know, Jupiter and Saturn, right? Saturn shows us what we have been working on for so long, and Jupiter shows us where we could go in starting new goals. And so now we'll have this awareness as to what we really need. And these two planets moving into the sign of Aquarius gives us the answers, like the answers. Aquarius is like the mastermind. Aquarius knows the real solutions to your biggest concerns and issues. It just does. Its vantage point is high up in the sky. I mean, if we think about it, the one energy that represents astrology and the stars and astronauts in space and discovery is Aquarius. And so it does have the biggest, most expansive view. And with that comes answers. With that, you can identify where things are happening and where they're not working. You know, you can find solutions. And it's very scientific, and it's very theoretical, and it's very trial and error. So it likes to experiment, and we need an energy that allows us to mess up in order to find ways to solve things, ways to problem solve, ways to innovate. And it's not just in science or in technology, but it's in our personal lives as well. We're taking on that energy when the planets move. And so we're going to really be seeing the answers to where we feel like we haven't been living correctly or in alignment with our purpose, or in alignment with the planet's purpose, with humanity, where we feel like we haven't been a part of things, where we've acted selfishly in our own interests instead of the groups. You know, it's going to be a lot less competitive. Aquarius wants everyone to have a chance to participate. And so it's less about people with very high ambitions getting to the top or whatever. It's more about, no, if you want to do it, then here's your ticket. That's all you have to do. You don't have to have any requirements, you know, you just have to exist. So yeah, some really, really big stuff. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I think I'm going to stop there. But definitely see what's going on right now and get excited for the future. I mean, it's still hard to see where everything is going, but just trust that the stuff that is going on now, that is starting now for you, really has staying power, and that is something to get excited about. Okay, so make sure you like what you're doing right now. That's really important. And that you have a community to evolve and to learn from. We need connections going forward. And so if it's something that's going to isolate you and not allow you to work with people, I would probably not do it. I would look elsewhere, because we need to tap into others' consciousness to start the future, to rebuild, and to evolve ourselves. It often takes looking outside of ourselves, which can involve other people giving us advice, learning from them. So really, really cool stuff. But you are always your own teacher, first and foremost. There may be other people that are more knowledgeable about certain things, and you take their teachings and their findings, but you go in the direction that speaks most to you, right? Other people don't make decisions for you. They just give you info. They give you understanding in their own approach. So you still have the power to choose and to change your future. And this coming year really, really wants you to do that. So good stuff. Doesn't mean that it's easy. Innovation and change can scare quite a few people. Most of us have qualms about change, big change. But when the stakes are dire, when there's no other way but to change, that's when we're the most welcoming and most supportive of the energy, which is exactly what's happening. So take that for what it is. If you are in need of a reading, please reach out to me on my Instagram, Tarot with Tyler, the same name, and make sure you guys are following on that. We have weekly readings, tarot readings there, and short form astrology posts. And this is more for the longer form content, our transit talks. And so, yeah, if you have really been in a struggle or you're unsure of which direction to take right now, if maybe you have a few choices and you just want a second opinion, let me know, DM me, and we can get something scheduled, okay? So you guys take care and dream it, be it.